Who do you think is the best server of all time? Well, I've got my vote, and in today's video, we're gonna break down 5 of the steps that make this player have the best serve of all time, and I'm also gonna compare it to one of the greatest players of all time that has an awesome serve too. My name is Jeff Salzenstein. I'm the founder of Tennis Evolution, one of the leading online tennis instruction websites in the world, and we are going to compare Pete Sampras to Roger Federer today. These are 2 of the greatest servers of all time. I give my vote to Pete Sampras. I played against Pete, practiced against him a couple times, and boy, was that serve amazing. I've also practiced against Roger, so I felt his serve as well. Let's get into the 5 steps. Right before we do, make sure that your notifications are turned on. You give us a thumbs up if you like this video, and you're subscribed to the Tennis Evolution channel. Now, the first step is the stance. And with the Pete Sampras stance, he gets into what we call a platform stance. And that means the back foot is not going to move as he launches into the court to hit the serve. Now, what he does is he has a pretty extreme stance where there's a lot of space between the heel of the front foot and the toe of the back foot. He also turns this foot out. So by turning this foot out, it allows him to really turn his shoulders and his hips when he makes the first move. Now, Roger Federer, he's in a platform stance as well, but it's not as extreme. So he doesn't have this foot back this direction as far. He's more in this position here. So he's not able to get quite as much turn, quite as much coil as Pete Sampras because of this stance. They both have amazing platform stances, and I actually prefer modeling the Federer stance for most players because getting into that Pete Sampras stance, I tried it myself. It is very extreme and very difficult, but it's one reason he had that amazing serve. Now, the next step that we want to talk about is how they start. Okay, so how they start with the serve. Pete Sampras, he liked to start on his back foot like this, and you'll notice how this toe is up. That means that most, if not all of his weight is on the back foot as he begins the motion. You'll also notice that his arms are up and they're bent in this position like this. That was what I modeled when I played on the tour. I like to get back on my back foot to start, just like this. Felt really good to me. Now, Roger Federer, he does the complete opposite. He starts forward, leaning forward like this, okay? And then his arms are straight and dangling. I don't care which one you go with, but I think you should pick one of the 2. Players like to start forward and then they rock back. Players like to start rocked back. Pick the one that you like and what makes the most sense to you. Now let's talk about the first move. The Pete Sampras first move. When he begins his motion, he really turns and keeps this racket down longer. It's almost like the racket lags. So as the tossing arm goes up, this arm is staying down like this. Roger Federer, he gets the racket up into the trophy position a little bit sooner than Pete Sampras. Pete's serve, he was more deliberate. He kept the racket down longer. Personally, that was hard for me to do. I like to have more of a modified motion where I get the racket up a little bit sooner because it felt like I could get on top of the ball easier. Whenever I let the racket lag, it was hard for me to feel like I could get up and over the ball. But again, everybody's different. You have to find what works for you. Now, the next part of the serve that we want to talk about is the turn. How much these guys are turning when they serve. Most players, club players and junior players, do not turn as much as Roger Federer and Pete Sampras. Now, because of the stance that I mentioned earlier, Pete Sampras had a massive turn, a massive coil, and that's because his body could get into that position. Most players can't even get into this position. But when he's turning, he's almost getting his back towards the net, so the chest is facing towards the back fence, all right? So he's really turning. Big turn, and it's because this foot is turned open like this. It's turned externally rotated like this, and it's also back in this position. So it's really easy for him to turn along this line. That creates more disguise, more topspin, and it's amazing. It's an amazing way to serve if you can develop it, but I don't recommend it for most club players or even for junior players unless they're very, very unique. Again, I've tried to be as extreme as Pete. It was very difficult, and I have pretty good range of motion. So it just shows how remarkable he was as a server. Now, Roger Federer, he also has a great turn, but it's just not as extreme. So he gets the shoulders to turn, he gets the hips to turn, and again, that allows for more disguise and more topspin on the serve. If we can model Roger Federer, it can help you serve better, certainly, okay? Now, the fifth and final step that we want to talk about today is pronation, or what they do after contact. And Sampras and Federer do something very different, okay? Pete Sampras, after he makes contact, so when he goes up and he goes to hit the ball, he makes contact here, and he basically breaks his arm off at the end. What do I mean by breaking the arm off? He actually bends his arm very early in the motion. So he's going to make contact, and then he's going to bend the arm and really pronate like this. And that's that ability to really accelerate and essentially make contact and rotate the shoulder and bend the arm right away made Pete very unique. Roger Federer has great pronation on his serve. He rotates the shoulder, but he keeps the arm straight throughout until the end. And that's a big difference between how they've chosen to finish their swings. Again, every server is unique. We want to look at what the best do and try to model what works for you. That's the whole goal. Is you don't want to just say, oh, Pete Sampras had the best serve of all time, now we're going to copy him. Most players can't get into that position. But if you do want to practice pronation, this is a very difficult drill, but if you do want to practice pronation, you can practice trying to bend that arm sooner. When I work with my students, it's usually very challenging for them to figure that out, but it's a great drill if you want to learn how to pronate and accelerate the racket through contact. Now, I hope you enjoyed today's video where I broke down the Pete Sampras Roger Federer serve. Go ahead and leave us a comment below if you have any questions. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and the notifications are turned on so you can be updated on all the releases that we have coming out at Tennis Evolution. And finally, we have a free gift for you. The 3 serve myths that most players are making. Click the link in the description below or somewhere in this video so you can learn the 3 myths and stop making mistakes that so many players have been making over the years. And also, we have a free Tennis Evolution app that you can download now. We have a free course inside it that has more serve lessons that are going to help you take your serve to the next level, plus the rest of your game. We've got other lessons on footwork and forehands and strategy, doubles and singles strategy. You can find that information in the description below. Again, thanks so much for your time today, and I hope you enjoyed this video where we compared Pete Sampras to Roger Federer. Those two serves, some of the best serving of all time, and you definitely want to learn from these two guys. Okay, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you at the next lesson.